Hi everybody, my name's Alexa Wilson and today we're going to be talking about game theory. What we first need to understand is the four different types of competitions, and what's most important to us is oligopoly. It is high barriers to entry, a few large companies, and each firm has some sort of market power. They rely heavily on what we call non-price competition. In an oligopoly, each firm competes without actually changing the price, like it does in some other market models. They go for style, service, advertising, anything they can do to differentiate their products. These could be designer labels or convenient locations. For an example of this, we'll be looking at something called a game. A game is any interaction between multiple persons in which someone's payoff is affected by the decisions made by others. For example, Simon and Casey are selling ice cream on the beach. They have their stalls on opposite sides and split the customers pretty equally. Now, Simon over here decides that it'd be a good idea if he moves his stand closer to the middle of the beach. This way, he would not only keep all of his old customers, but maybe even snag some of Casey's. Now, Casey's no idiot. He decides that the next day, he is going to move his stand smack dab in the middle of the beach. This way, he retains even more of the customers. Now, Simon, obviously, moves his stand right next to his. Now they're in a sort of gridlock. They both move their stands so close to the center of the beach, neither can improve their position. So they need to find other ways to compete. Casey responds by lowering his prices. And of course, what does Simon do in response? Lowers his. They'll continue to do this until they're not even making as much as a profit. They're both worse off. Instead, what they should have done is what we talked about earlier, non-price competition. For example, Casey could start selling churros, and Simon could start selling frozen bananas, and then the customers would go to whichever they thought appealed to them. In order to see how this plays out on a graph, we're going to look at another very famous example known as the prisoner's dilemma. Let's say times have gotten hard selling ice cream. So, Simon and Casey decide to rob a bank, but they've been caught. They're taken into two separate interrogation rooms, Simon in one and Casey in the other. Now, the cops don't have enough evidence to convict both of them. However, they're given a set of options that we'll see on this matrix. So, first, they can both stay silent. They'll both get 2 years in prison. However, where it starts to get interesting is the cops offer them a deal. They can implicate their partner and get away with no prison time. So, for example, Simon can stay totally silent on his part and say that it was all Casey's idea. He'll get 0 years in prison and Casey will get 10 and vice versa. However, if they both decide to implicate the other, they'll both get 5 years in prison. The ideal situation would be to both say nothing. They'll both get 2 years in prison and the best outcome. However, they don't really know each other. They don't trust each other and have no way of knowing what the other did. So they might say, well, I don't want 10 years in prison. It's better for me to just say it was all his idea. However, then, if they both do that, they'll both have 5 years in prison. Now let's look at two competing cupcake firms, Sugar and Swirls. This pricing matrix shows what would happen if they chose to price high or low for each day. Ideally, they'd both price high, they'd both get a high profit. However, Sugar realizes that if they were to price low for that day, they'd sell more cupcakes, and thus they'd get more profit. However, if then Swirls decides to compete, they'll both be priced low. Now this is when some might form a cartel. Now a cartel is when oligopolistic industries agree to fix prices, market shares, territories, etc. in order to get a higher profit. It's collusion and it's actually illegal in most states. So we can't collude, so instead we should find a dominant strategy. Sugar is deciding how to price. If Swirl prices high, it makes sense for them to price low. If they price low, it also makes sense for them to price low. That's their dominant strategy. And the same goes for Swirls. This reaches a Nash equilibrium, which is maybe not the most efficient outcome, but the most likely. While this all may seem a bit confusing, it really is just a simple way of quantifying how different companies compete with each other, so we, the consumers, can get the best products possible. Thank you!